Hi everybody. I hope you're having a great summer. This video is to help you understand how to write the compare and contrast essay that you'll have to do here in August. Just so we're all on the same page, let's talk a little bit about the AP test. The AP test itself will have 50% of your grade come from answering 70 multiple choice questions. And those questions will all have four possible responses. We typically did pretty well last year on the multiple choice section. It's just a matter of studying and memorizing a lot of random facts. The hard part of the test really comes from writing the essays. There are three essays. One is called an EBQ. We call it a DBQ in the class, a document-based question. The next one is talking about changes and continuities over time for societies. And the last one is a compare and contrast essay. And that is actually the first one we're going to start with learning how to write here in class because it's perhaps the most, at least the easiest to understand what they're trying to ask you to do. So what you'll be given is a prompt that's asking you a question, and you'll start by analyzing that prompt to make sure that you fully understand what is the question that they're asking. It would be utterly tragic for you to write the entire essay and then realize that you didn't truly answer the question that they were asking. So here is an example question. It says, compare and contrast the goals of the revolutionary process in two of the following countries, beginning with the dates specified. So in this particular case, you'll probably get the question and think, what? I have no idea what I'm doing. But if you break it down, you'll start to understand what they're asking you to do. So you look at the words in the question. It wants you to compare and contrast, so that's find similarities and differences. And then it's asking about the goals of the revolutionary process. So the revolutionaries themselves, as they were fighting to change their country, what were their goals while they were fighting? And we have to think about that in two of the three countries listed. In this case, we are going to go with China and Russia. The first thing that I tend to do is to try to organize my thoughts. So let's just do some fact vomiting and write down as much as we can about China's revolution and about Russia's revolution, and then we take all of our fact vomiting and we try to strategize that into an actual answer. So I know that in China they were attempting to end their absolute monarchy. They'd had an emperor for quite some time. They wanted to create a republic similar to that of the nations of the West, very much like England and the United States. And they also wanted to end foreign aggression in their lands. That's all about their revolution. Notice that there's no similarities or differences between China and Russia so far. I haven't even got to Russia. I'm just fact vomiting everything I know about China. Then start fact vomiting everything you know about the Russian Revolution, that they wanted to end their absolute monarchy as well. They had a czar that had been ruling. In this case, they wanted to create a communist government that the world had never before seen. And they also wanted to end their participation in World War I. So once you have all of your fact vomiting done, you can start strategizing to try to find how they are similar, how Russia and China are similar, and how they are different. So, for example, they both wanted to end their absolute monarchy. So, right away, we can find that they have a similarity in that aspect. They have another similarity. It's a little harder to see up there in that they wanted to concentrate on their own problems. Russia wanted to concentrate on Russia. China wanted to concentrate on China in order to build themselves up to become more powerful, to face these aggressive nations that had been kind of attacking them for quite some time. You see that Russia was involved in World War I because they had been attacked by Germany. China had been divided up into spheres of influence by colonizing nations of the West. So both of them wanted to build up their home power in order to defend themselves from the aggressive outsiders. So we have two similarities there. I have strategized what my answer for this essay is going to be in the similarity aspect at least. Then I should find at least one difference. I see that they wanted to promote different systems. China was in the process of building a democratic republic, and Russia wanted to build the first communist system the world had ever seen. Those are very different ideas. So that is a difference in their revolutionary goals. So after we have strategized, you just want to make sure that you have a sufficient number of similarities and differences to appease the AP graders. They don't want you to remain as simple as possible. So we kind of stick to a rule of three in this class. Try to have a total of three answers to the question. In this case, we have two similarities and one difference. So we're going to work with that. We use the chickenfoot thesis method in this class, which means that your thesis should have a reference to the question that there was a revolution going on in Russia and China, and then provide three answers to that question. That they had similar goals in the abolishment of their long-standing monarchies. They had a similar goal in building domestic power, and they had a different goal in the type of system they wanted to build. So if you look at it, it ends up looking like a chicken foot. Reference the question, answer 1, answer 2, answer 3. These answers end up becoming the topics of each body paragraph in your essay. So similarity 1 will become the topic of body paragraph 1. Similarity 2 becomes the topic of body paragraph 2. And difference 1 becomes the topic of body paragraph 3. This is the easiest but not the best method for creating a thesis. In this particular method, you typically end up starting with a very simplistic word and then writing a very simplistic sentence. To have a reference to the question here at the beginning and then 3 clauses at the end makes for a pretty simplistic sentence that you've probably been used to writing for your educational career so far. At some point during the year, you need to start creating more complex sentences that start with more complex words. Complex words to start sentences would include although, however, despite, and while. Now, using these words means that you have to begin to move the toes of the chicken, these clauses, the answers here at the end. You'd have to start moving them around to make them fit into a more complex sentence. And it ends up looking visually something like this. If you write although and then begin with your difference, you can end with the 2 clauses that are your similarities. And they still represent the topic of body paragraph, 1, 2, and 3, but it makes for a more complex looking thesis. And you can get extra points on your AP essays if you have complex sentences rather than simplistic sentences. That's something you're going to want to work on throughout the year, is trying to start your thesis with a complex word. Never ever start your thesis with the word the. It'll lead to a simplistic sentence. Now, what we need to do is take our table where we were facts strategizing and vomiting and turn it into a sentence to become our thesis statement for the entire essay. Your thesis statement is the one that answers the question all in one sentence. Sometimes it's more than one sentence if it's super complex, but we're trying to get it into one sentence to make it very concise. So in this case, what we have is while Russia's revolution of 1910 and China's revolution of 1911, both, we're going to start with the similarities, both sought to end their traditional long-standing monarchies, so that's one similarity, and attempted to concentrate efforts on domestic affairs to build their power over their neighbors, that's the other similarity. They were promoting different new political and economic systems in their government. So what I've done here is I've taken one of the similarities and I've written it into my thesis, the other similarity also written into my thesis, and my difference written into my thesis. I take my fact strategizing and I write it as one sentence. What I have created visually ends up looking like this. Although similarity 1 and similarity 2, there is a difference, and these become the topics of each of my body paragraphs. So what will happen as I organize my essay is that I will have my thesis in my introduction paragraph. Body paragraph 1 will be about my first similarity, how they have similar goals in getting rid of their long-standing monarchies. Body paragraph 2 will be my second similarity in building domestic power, and body paragraph 3 will be my difference in communism versus democracy. And then in my conclusion, I rewrite my thesis. Now, what we've done already in writing our thesis is we've actually written the summary sentences for each of our body paragraphs. So for example, we said body paragraph 1 is going to be about ending the traditional and long-standing monarchies. If you look at your thesis and you just take out that clause, Russia's revolution of 1917 and China's revolution of 1911 both sought to end their traditional long-standing monarchies. That clause becomes the topic of body paragraph 1, and I can write it as the first sentence of body paragraph 1. Body paragraph 2 is going to be about building domestic power. So I suck out that information and it becomes the first sentence of body paragraph 2 from my thesis. And then body paragraph 3 is about my difference, and if I cut out just that information about the difference from my thesis, it becomes the summary sentence, the first sentence of body paragraph 3. Now in the class we're going to call these baby theses. We take our thesis, which has usually 3 clauses, and we cut it up, and each clause becomes a separate sentence to begin each body paragraph. So the first clause of my thesis, the first similarity, becomes the baby thesis, the first sentence of body paragraph 1. The second clause of my thesis becomes the baby thesis, or first sentence, of body paragraph 2. And the final clause in my thesis becomes the baby thesis, first sentence, of body paragraph 3.